and welcome to Dairy Processing's Ingredient Deep Dive. Today, we're going to talk about best practices in ice cream innovation. Such a yummy topic. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Donna Berry. I am a degreed food scientist who has been writing for the dairy trade for, I hate to say it, but 30 years. I'm also a contributing editor to Dairy Processing magazine. Today, I am joined by Adam Dalebroux. He is the senior sales manager at Star K White and a seasoned R&D specialist in the dairy industry. Thanks for joining me today, Adam. Now, while I go get my samples, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Star K White?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. So yeah, just a little bit about Star K White. So we actually specialize in making flavors, bases, variegates, and inclusions. And actually, our tagline is, "We make the stuff that makes ice cream taste great." Now, this company started in 1890, actually on Valentine's Day in New York City. It's always been family owned, and it's actually currently on the fourth and fifth generation. So pretty impressive.
Well, thanks, Adam, for that. And now comes the fun part of our interview. You know, this is my favorite time of the year. It's ice cream season. Now, I really do appreciate that all the ice cream innovators out there are doing a great job of making every day an ice cream day with all their seasonal and limited edition products. Kudos to you, and please keep it up. But you know, there's still something very special about April and May when all the big brands start getting very zealous about all the new flavors that they're putting out in the marketplace, you know, so that consumers can enjoy them during those lazy days of summer. So let's go at it, because this week I went to a number of different retail banners, different stores, to check out what was, you know, the flavors that really intrigued me. I picked up more than we have time to go through today, but I am concealing their name. We're going to talk about them generically. Some of these products are outstanding. They're doing all of the right things, but some of them are a little challenged.
I'm actually really interested to see what you found.
So my first sample that we're going to try is, I like to call this a twofer. It's because it's two desserts in one, because clearly the ice cream is a dessert, but it's trying to simulate another dessert. You know, it's kind of like you get two goodies for one with, then if you think about it that way, it's like half the calories, which is way up. Totally, I'm into that. This flavor here is intended to be a citrus flavored pie, complete with a graham cracker crust and even a fluffy top, like fillet topping. And while I dive into a spoonful, Adam, would you please share some of the key considerations when making an ice cream that has this many different components in it?
Sure. So actually, this is really relevant. I help run our market insights program, and we've actually really noticed this baked nostalgic type trend is really growing within the marketplace. Now, in terms of this particular product and all baked to ice cream type products, most developers would think you have to go right to the taste profile of the product, but it's actually more than that. Um, Depends on the color of the product,
Mhm.
how it scoops, anything that's crunchy, even the sound, how it melts in your mouth. You really kind of do eat ice cream, weirdly enough, with all five senses. Star K White teaches the flavors portion at the Penn State Ice Cream Short Course, and we actually highlight this very thing. Now, in terms of this particular flavor, so it sounds like this developer used some kind of like pie crust inclusion. That's great. It's because you can't actually just put pie crust into ice cream and expect it to turn out. It would just turn to a mushy mess. So, for instance, if I was the developer on this, I would utilize a fat-based textured sauce with some graham cracker pieces inside of it, preferably bought from Star K White, of course. And this would give the representation of a pie crust without actually having to use pie crust and worrying about losing that crunch.
Well, it's pretty good pie crust. It feels like someone plated a piece of pie and it's just the right, cut into with the fork. And you're right. It's very critical that that texture is maintained and that, that's simulated through this too for dessert, right? What I'd like to point out about this product is when the developer, the innovator, the manufacturer, whoever developed it, they dissected the dessert and worked back. And, let's just say lemon meringue pie. With a product like that, you think of the pie slice and how like the lemon custard feeling is the primary component. And then the meringue and the pie crust is just, a side part. Well, in this, you would think the ice cream base would maybe be lemon flavored, but it appears that the ice cream base is more of that fluffy, sweet, kind of like a meringue or a marshmallow or whipped cream taste. And then you got the pie crust ones, but then there are these little lemon bursts, and I'll tell you, it really, that whole texture and the way they just explode in your mouth really does give you that feeling like you're biting into a piece of pie. And I know that citrus flavor is very powerful, those extracts. I'm wondering if this is a smart approach. You're using different textures, a different way of doing it. But if you put all that extract into the base, it probably would impact texture and quality, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I've actually seen issues in using a citrus extract directly in an ice cream mix. Sometimes you get curdling dairy, or I've even seen it impact the overrun, the air in the
Okay.
product. So it looks like they found an appropriate way to still deliver that flavor. Now, again, if I was the developer on this, I would actually probably use some kind of citrus flavor base,
Hmm.
which still delivers on the overall flavor without impacting the quality of the product itself. And it actually sometimes can deliver a color and texture with it if that's what the developer is trying to achieve.
Well, it's super yummy. Okay, we need to move on to the second one. Now, this sample is for a small niche in the marketplace right now, but it's growing. It's for the over 21 crowd because it does contain alcohol. And because we're taping this a little bit earlier in the day, I know it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but I still have a couple more hours I need to work. I'm going to look at it and observe and critique it a little bit more because I noticed that when I was scooping it, the texture is really quite different. And I'm assuming that that is it's called a chocolate coffee martini espresso. And I'm assuming that that's probably because of the alcohol in here. I've been told the packaging says it's 5% alcohol by volume. So could you talk a little bit about adding alcohol to to a frozen product and what its impact is?
Yeah, sure. So alcohol is really tricky, and it does indeed impact the freezing point of the product. Um, this could have an impact in how icy it is when you eat it. Sometimes you get that little bit of freezer burn at the top. Even things like going through the cold chain. I've seen things like shrinkage, for instance. So, what I would actually recommend is rather than put the alcohol in the ice cream itself, why not put it in the variegate, for instance? So, Star K White offers a whiskey caramel
Mm.
that you can still deliver the alcohol in the product without having to worry about the impact of what it does to the ice cream. Now, let's just say you want to get an alcohol type flavor, but you don't necessarily need to use alcohol. That can generally be done using a flavor base.
Hmm.
So I've worked on products that are margarita, rum, even beer, for instance, just to name a few.
Yum. All right. Well, you guys all saw me like sneak a little spoonful there, but it was not the ice cream. I can promise you that. It was the chocolate covered espresso bean, and it was delicious. And the alcohol definitely wasn't in there because now I simply feel caffeinated and charged up. But the bean was perfect. It had great flavor and great crunch. And I know enough about ice cream to know that this is about the enrobing process. So could you just talk a little bit about the opportunities, I guess, in getting super creative once you're able to enrobe an inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. So we also offer an espresso pillow, very similar, also coated in chocolate. Now, what this does is kind of creates a barrier for the ice cream the moisture to not impact the inclusion itself. Plus, chocolate actually pairs really well with espresso, even if you want to eat them on their own and not put it in ice cream, which I've definitely done. Um, but in general, when it comes to inclusions, you want to make sure you have some kind of fat barrier. Now, that can be a chocolate, a compound, a vegetable oil like coconut oil, but just having that kind of barrier to keep from the moisture migration happening really helps maintain the crunch of the product.
Well, I'm not used to having caffeine after noontime, and I definitely don't have this much sugar at this time of day usually. So I'm feeling pretty good. So I think it's a good time to move on to sample number three, which is a higher protein, lower sugar concept. Now, this is another twofer. It's a caramel cheesecake flavor. And while I do that, or while I start tasting it, Adam, could you tell us just a little bit about how Star K White assists its customers with achieving higher protein levels and lower sugar levels in innovative desserts like this twofer?
Yeah, so sugar replacements have actually really come a long way in the past 10 to 15 years. We still do work with your standard sugar alcohols that everybody kind of thinks of when they think of these products, but we started utilizing more modern ingredients like stevia, monk fruit, allulose, just to kind of name a few. It kind of depends on what the consumer is expecting. Um, Also can impact the price point. So we tend to kind of work with our customers to make sure we're delivering a good product. Now, you'd kind of mentioned protein. Just something that I've seen recently that I just think is really neat is we've actually worked recently with a animal-free dairy protein. Um, doesn't need a cow to create the protein. It's pretty cool stuff coming out.
The variegate in the caramel variegate in this high protein, low sugar product is still very soft and has I mean, it's like a caramel. And again, I know enough about ice cream inclusions to know that the way you keep it soft usually is through the sugar because it lowers the freezing point, and clearly that's not the case here. So there are tricks up your sleeve to do that, right?
There is, but sadly, it's not just one trick. So it really just is formula dependent. Things like the water activity, um, the cooking process, how
Mhm.
long it cooks, if there's any fat in the product, things like stabilizers and emulsifiers. These are all tricks that we use. There are other ingredients that we can use, but I definitely don't want to give away anything proprietary.
Smart man. Okay, so our last sample of our conversation today represents a booming trend that you alluded to at the very beginning in the whole category of ice cream innovation, and that's nostalgia. But nostalgia with a twist. And often that modern twist is through texture, which is kind of one of the sensory elements that we tend to forget about and don't give it enough attention, and it's starting to pick up. Um, Now, this flavor is a nod to Baskin Robbins, one of its original 31 flavors when the company or when the chain first came out in 1945. And no, I'm not that old. I didn't taste it then. But it was Butterscotch Swirl, one of the original 31 flavors. Now, this is a twist on it. But first, just a quick little piece of trivia. I don't know if anybody out there knows it, and I don't think you do either. But my first real job with a paycheck was scooping ice cream out of 31 flavors in 1982 for $2.20 an hour. uh, it was kind of fun scooping all of these. It felt like old times. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and give this flavor a taste while you talk a little bit about, again, building on this trend of nostalgia based flavors with unique twists.
Yeah, so I had mentioned earlier in our market insights program, nostalgia is actually probably the biggest trend we've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years. Um, it's something where I think people are just looking more towards like that comfort food, if you
Yeah.
will. But like you had mentioned, they
Mm.
want it with a little bit extra, with a twist, with a little bit more of an experience to it. So, for instance, we were recently at Ice Cream Tech, And the flavor we submitted was s'mores, very standard nostalgic type flavor. But our twist, if you will, was we put a brown butter base in the ice cream. So you had that more like baked premium note, and then to deliver on the graham, we used our toasted graham variegated and some chocolate pieces as well. So it really kind of tasted like a premium s'mores.
That was probably the most delicious interview I have ever had. um, Thank you, Adam, so much. I really hope all the innovators out there listening to us were inspired and got some great tips from you. Any final words, Adam?
I just want to thank you for having me. This has been great. If there are any questions that people have after listening to this, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer. You can find us at starkwhite.com. There is a contacts page, so you just click on that, submit your question, and either myself or someone on the team will get back to you.
Well, thanks so much, Adam. Again, great talking with you. On behalf of Dairy Processing and Soslin Publishing, thank you all very much for joining us today, and bon appetit, happy scooping.
Thanks again.